and it's going.
Okay, great. I posted just a few items. Of course, everybody can amend it as necessary. I always think it's good to start sort of hardware maybe, and then move down to what we're doing in the cloud. So if everyone agrees, could we start there? Sensors, then firmware, then dashboard, then infrastructure?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, I'm just going to kick it off then. So in terms of the deployments, I just thought it'd be nice for the community to know what's happening. So we have some, just now, we just shipped off 20 to Vaclav. Do you want to speak about your project quickly?
Yeah, for sure. So we are still planning that project in Nepal in total. In the first phase, or for testing the feasibility of the system, we are planning for 40 sensors, which 20 of those are those that Andy just sent me. So it's going to be Wi-Fi, Ethernet connectivity, and 20 hopefully sometime in future is going to be those cellular connectivity. Or not. If we find enough sites, we may just put Wi-Fi and Ethernet, the same sensors. So right now we are still looking for funding. We do have some funding, some minimal funding that would allow us to go there and deploy those sensors. And we are talking to this governmental organization that deals with early warnings of all kinds, not only earthquake early warning. So we are hoping to get a lot of support from them because they are very interested in the project and in running the system after this initial phase that is going to take.
That's a government organization.
Also, one more thing, we are in Nepal. Yeah, in Nepal, and also we are now like in searching of funding. I'm collaborating with a few universities in the US, and we are proposing this project together. It's multiple other things all glued together. So the Nepal project is one of them, but they also kind of sketched this project in Bhutan, which is not targeted at earthquakes or earthquake early warning, but early warning from these like flash floods that come from glaciers, and they think that these sensors, OpenEEW sensors, will fit quite well for this purpose too. So it's going to be slightly different processing, but they want to test some 10 or 20 instruments over there too. But it's still up in the air whether this project is going to work out or not, like whether we're going to get the funding. But if we do, we would also use some 10 or 20 sensors in Bhutan for trying for something slightly different. So if everything works out money-wise and COVID-wise, we would like to go in May before the monsoon. But I think my personal guess is a little bit too optimistic. I think it's probably going to be in the fall. I don't think it's going to be the spring. But yeah.
Hey, that's cool. That's great. That's quite exciting. If you do end up doing the Bhutan project, we'll have to drop an E from the name and just make it OpenEEW, I guess.
I honestly don't know much about that. They like sketched this or wrote like half page about this potential application, and I haven't really studied that much about those flash floods. But there was one in Uttarakhand in northern India a few weeks back.
That's right,
and it killed many people. So I think that, and in theory, like, those sensors should work just fine. I don't know, processing wise, it's going to be probably quite a bit different than earthquakes, but whatever. I think it's good to test.
Well, we have an I2C sensor if you ever needed anything else, and there's a whole catalog of I2C sensors you could use.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's Nepal. Puerto Rico, very briefly, we have about 80 that are going to be on their way very soon, as we understand what the firmware needs to be, because we're assuming, of course, you'll do your own firmware for Nepal based on whatever your requirements are, but sort of more as a community effort, we're doing the whole back end and firmware for Puerto Rico. So once that's ready, the devices will go there. And in the background, you can see more and more cases being printed all the time. So that's Puerto Rico. Chile, just so people know, we actually sent a couple of sensors there in a new case, which was a sort of waterproof case, which I think I should share on GitHub. We just came up with it recently. And that's for them to do some early warning tests as well. One of the guys that we were dealing with is in Antarctica, so I had this really difficult discussion with a sort of 2-minute delay between either one of us speaking. So that's Chile. Washington State, just at the ex-Harvard seismologists are now in Washington State, and we're shipping 3 sensors to them as soon as we can work out how to connect to a local MQTT server so that they can do some testing, which they're interested in doing. And they also are going to help provide some sensors, hopefully, to Puerto Rico with some funding. So with some funding which we previously had from them, we're trying to see if we can divert some of the sensors, I think it was 150 or so, to Puerto Rico, which will bump up the numbers we have in total. And hi, Marion. Marion just joined us.
Hi, everyone. Sorry for being late.
Your timing is great, Marion, because we were just at the very beginning talking about the different potential deployments, and I was just about to say New Zealand. So I don't know if you want to introduce yourself to everybody.
Okay, yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Marian Tan. I'm a postdoctoral research fellow here at Massey University. And yeah, my research is really on usability and technology acceptance. So I do a lot of the social side of our earthquake early warning research here. Yeah, and that's a brief overview of who I am.
That's great. So, so Marion, yeah, I think it's so everybody knows you guys have got this really amazing research program, and there's a website. I think I shared the link in Slack, and the idea would be that you're testing many different technologies, and you're looking at the social side of it, and we're going to send some of our latest OpenEEW sensors to you guys, just so you have them there, and we'd love to start getting some recordings in New Zealand.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah.
Great. Okay. So the next thing on our agenda was to talk about production. And I think just to say that we've got 100 sensors that were just made, which are all going to Puerto Rico and 20 to Vaclav in Nepal. There's 200 more on their way. And the reason we're making another 200 is because we just had some great news yesterday that Analog Devices, who make our accelerometer, are supporting our project more. So they're giving us incredible discounts on the accelerometers, which is by far the most expensive part of the BOM, the materials, bill of materials, and that is allowing us to sell them at $100, which is just about covers everything. So thanks to that, we could buy some more. The firmware. So John, it's a shame Gareth isn't here because Gareth did some good work recently. John, do you want to say anything about 140, which I was just testing?
No, so actually in December, I opened up the 1.3 branch, and about a dozen or so features got added to 1.3. And I had never published it as a release because I was sort of always waiting for the STA, LTA algorithm. And I decided I just wanted to close the 1.3 branch with all the features that were there and then work on the new stuff in 1.4. So I opened a new branch for 1.4 yesterday, and I published to main the 1.3 release. I had about a dozen features. It actually codifies the various topics. So it supports a topic that you can ask the sensor to send 10 seconds of data, to turn on and off, continuous send, or 5 seconds of data, or the prior 10 seconds. It also has a firmware check topic, so you can ask the sensor to check for its firmware and upgrade if it needs to. So it was a variety of topics that were added. It also implements the FIFO queue. So first in, first out, 10 seconds of data plus the 1 second of current data. So this was all in preparation so that we can actually implement the STA-LTA algorithm. What else did it do? It had some bunch of blinks. So if it blinks red for earthquake and yellow for while it's synchronizing the time, and it does a slow breathe of blue up and down as it's reading the sensor. So a nice set of features. And so it got published yesterday. That's sort of in production now. The next feature that we're working on is we took Gareth is implemented the STA-LTA algorithm. So we've got that. Well, I've got it flashed. I don't know. I've been able to test it other than it compiled on my board. But he's found that when you first turn on the board, sorry, put it away over here. When you first turn on the board, it does a calibration of the sensor. And so it calibrates, and then it starts to remember the prior 10 seconds. Turns out the first two readings are not quite calibrated correctly because it's wildly huge numbers. So it's throwing off the algorithm. So we just probably need to throw away the first two readings or so from the accelerometer. Anyway, it's like an edge case, which the accelerometer is not quite handling. So we're going to have to handle that in software.
So we're not running into memory issues or anything, are we?
No. It was purely this morning. There was an outage because Dallas. It's like sub-zero degrees in Dallas right now, and ice storms. I actually have never seen an outage at that magnitude in Dallas. So they took an outage, and some of the like all of our MQT service was out for a couple 2 or 3 hours. So that was really surprising today. But that's why both Gareth and I had trouble this morning, just because of the ice storm and the weather. So, but I think it's just these two initial readings off the sensor is causing a problem, and we'll just discard the first. I mean, who cares? You plug in the board. There's not going to be an earthquake when you plug in the board. The trouble is, it immediately decides that those two readings could be, part of an earthquake. So it doesn't calibrate the STA-LTA algorithm.
Those first two readings are the oldest of the 10 seconds or the newest of the 10 seconds?
It's the oldest of the 10 seconds. It's basically the first, when you plug in the boards, like you actually plug it in, and it connects to Wi-Fi, connects to the cloud, says I'm here, blah, blah. And then it initializes the accelerometer, and then it starts to record the readings in the queue. It's those first, not even the first 2 seconds. Remember, because
we've seen this before. We've had this before. Can you just add a 1 second delay when you start up the accelerometer?
Yeah, that's what I probably will need to do, and like just discard the first, because who cares? The first second when you turn on, we'll just throw it away.
In the Python code we did for the accelerometer, we added in a 1 second delay because we had readings of 0 for the first. I can't remember how many, so I wonder if a delay might fix that.
Yeah, we might have to.
So what exactly is the problem? Like, why does it cause a problem? Even if those were like some unreasonable measurements or something really high or really low or something.
Yeah.
Why does it cause problems for the firmware?
I think it just throws off the math for Gareth. He was discovering this yesterday. Yeah.
I see.
Sorry, we'll work on it. But we're very close to having the STA-LTA algorithm going.
One question, John. So I got quite excited when you said there was a new version. So I went and got 140 and put it on this device. This guy right here. I've got a black one.
Okay.
And
so 140 is right now very similar. It's a branch off of well, 1.3. So it's at this point very close development features to 1.4. So it's our development branch right now.
Okay.
1.4 is our development branch.
Is there STA,
1.3 is sort of the production.
in the on the serial output, I couldn't see anything that it was just telling me about the queue. I didn't see whether there's any STA, LTA.
Yeah, we don't have good debug yet, which we'll need to add.
Okay. Well, anyway, that's incredible progress. I'm really sorry Gareth's not here because that's quite exciting. And I don't know,
he did a nice job.
whether you could have a look at the STA, LTA implementation, and maybe you have any comments on what's been going on there. Okay. Well, if there's nothing else about firmware, shall we talk about dashboard, Ryan? I missed a meeting last week. I apologize.
Is this?
Oh no, no worries. So yeah, I mean, I'll say what I'm working. What's that?
Is this where we go over the sensors?
I was just going to say, I'll say what I'm working on. Yeah, Adrian and Johnny really have been doing a lot of work last week. I just finished up most of the back end for the onboarding process. So the part where we get something from there's a magic link that's returned from the API that gets shown in the onboarding app. And then when you click that link, you finalize your account on the dashboard side, and the back end just has to make some communication to set up the account and whatnot, and then throw them into the dashboard. So the back end portion of that, I just finished up, or mostly finished this morning. And now I'm just going to do the front end part of it, which should play a lot on the login page. So a lot of that process is done, and then I'm going to start on the back end for the sensors, which I've been saying for a week and a half now. But it's everything with programming takes longer than I initially think it's going to be. But Adrian and Johnny have been doing a lot as far as the deployment and sensor respectively. So I'll let them say what they're working on.
So I guess I'll talk about my sensor stuff. I think it's best if I share my screen, if that's okay by y'all.
Great.
Yeah.
Your entire screen, that seems to be the only thing that ever works. Can you see it? You should be able to see yourself now.
Yeah. We can see ourselves.
So I've set up a little thing where even you guys can see it. If you want to go to johnnythecarrot.com, you'd see it. Also, Ryan.
Yeah.
For some reason, if I hit reload now, it doesn't give me a 404, so I might just have to give you what my setup is on Nginx. I have to turn off my dark reader.
Well, our issue now has moved to, because we're trying to move over to Kubernetes, and our issue now is that it gives us some weird invalid host error or something like that, which we need to.
Is that on the API?
That's on. No, that's just on the dashboard itself.
Right, because I had a poster on the API, but I fixed that. It was an Nginx issue. Anyway, so when you're logged in, you can go to the sensors page, which is what I'm working on. This is this, by the way, as you can see. Which currently just generates random stuff, which is totally why this is actually pirates and not random data. So yeah, you can.
Looks great.
Yeah.
You can select your page size. We can adjust this if we needed to. Which is like 15. There's a couple issues which I don't yet know how to solve, which I would like to discuss with Ryan. Because
yeah, definitely.
I'm a little at a loss, but I'll first go over what I'm doing here. So this is just all random data except for Mexico and Wi-Fi here. Everything else is all random. You can go and do this and do that. So one of the questions, I actually have it listed, that's the wrong thing, listed on here, so I don't know how to make the graph area not scroll with the table, because of some CSS issues. If I open this up, and this is just a dancing CSS animation that I made because I don't know what to put here. So if I make the window smaller, I'm just
that could be our official, if we don't have when it's loading, that could be our official
oh boy, these windows. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But yeah,
and just a comment about that. So I talked with John about trying to get. So I'm going to work on because this all started with the real time graph that originally was built, and so we have a lot of the real time graph built. We just sort of need to now make it into change the styling on it to make it into Kristen's design. But I talked to John sort of the infrastructure of making all that happen, and we'll probably just have the dashboard connect directly to MQTT topics and see if we can bring in the real-time data that way.
Yeah, I have for you. So over the weekend or last week after our discussion, I put together a little node program, and it just subscribes to a topic and a sensor. Now it's all hard-coded values with the API key, and you would be able to listen. You could tell it, listen to this sensor. Sorry, I'm getting emphatic and you don't see. You can listen to a particular sensor. So case where you click in the actual user experience, you would know the sensor ID and you say, I want to subscribe to this, and you would just start to get real-time data.
Yeah,
and then you could decide how to plot.
That's awesome. I mean, that's exactly that'll make it very easy to bring all that in.
Things set up for connecting stuff yet. This is just all random stuff. But to go over some stuff, the stuff that I implemented based on Kristen's design, that is this little thing. And normally, this little element here should be centered and should be sized based upon a width of the table, but this is not currently the case. It is currently the width of the entire table, as in like the scrollable table, which is not good.
Oh yeah, because it's yeah. Well, that's
I don't know how to fix that yet. It's probably
you could probably just leave that off because I don't know what styling I'm gonna end up doing with the graph itself.
I'm not gonna touch it yet. We'll see what happens. Another thing that I did based on her design, which is a bit clunky in my opinion, but well, it's better than nothing, right? And that is the fact that the left part here does not scroll along with the table, and neither does the right overflow menu here, which just has wow a button and which is a little alert, which I don't really know what to put there yet because the buttons would be conditional.
Wait, so because the left part when you scroll over, which part doesn't scroll over?
This, which is currently selected.
Oh, I kind of like that because then it shows you still the ID of the sensor,
yeah,
right?
That was discussed.
Why would you need to see the ID of the sensor? Like that's just a bunch of.
Yeah, it's what was discussed on the dashboard meeting last time that she would like this part
and
that part to be visible at all times, no matter where your scroll position is. So I made that happen. Also, this little button here is also always visible. So that's the thing. Although I do feel like
I think that's a nice experience. So you you select the sensor, and then you've got there's attributes about the sensor that you can scroll.
Yeah.
So I like that idea.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was and no credit goes to me. I just implemented it. All credit goes to Kristen.
Well, you get credit for for that portion of it.
Yeah.
No, that's a really good job.
I didn't catch that.
That's really well done. It looks really good.
Yeah, it looks lovely.
So yeah, this works like that. What else? What was I gonna go over? Are the sticky columns okay? Yeah, apparently yes they are. So they sit here. Another thing that I didn't mention here is, are we supposed to support mobile? Because if we do, then I am basically a little bit screwed.
We do need to support mobile, but we don't. We can do, we don't have concrete designs for what the mobile should look like. We're just sort of using what Carbon should look like,
right?
Or what's already built into Carbon. So I would say don't stress over it. We'll have a whole point where we go over with Kristen how to make everything look good on mobile, and we'll come back to everything that we built and try and do that before we go to version 1. So whatever it looks like now, don't worry about don't worry about it too much.
Right. Another thing that I would want to ask, and it's a little bit sad that Kristen couldn't make it today, but y'all know it, It's just regular feedback. Like we'll do as well, but we have all these things here, and she made it clear to me that even if you can't see all the sensors in the table here, you should still show all of them. But I feel like it would be a bit confusing if we didn't at least indicate on the map which ones are the actually visible ones. Like if I say, "Oh, this one, which one is this on the map?" I have no clue.
But wouldn't you center the map on the one that you've clicked? Is that possible?
No, that doesn't happen yet at the moment. If you,
Right.
it doesn't really do anything. And that was
I
wondering
always
what we should
expected
do.
we can ask her, but I always sort of expected maybe it to just highlight the sensor as you roll over it.
Yeah. So what I would do, and this is what we should definitely check this with Kristen, but if we hover over this, like just on the center, on the this hover thing, is this a problem? This is the change of color. This is just a side effect of different CSS element. I feel like it's not that big of a deal, but
no, that's I would say that's we can fix that.
Yeah. Anyway, what I would do is you hover over the row that it would highlight, like would just mark it as white. I'm not sure if we need to if this is, for example, five sensors, do we need to make sure show the 5 sensors on the map in some kind of color? I don't know. We should ask Kristen that, or maybe you guys have some feedback on that.
I have a question about color, Johnny. So the green dots make sense to me, but if the device is off, which we will know because of the MQTT service, last will and testament.
Yeah, I didn't actually receive any. The only thing I had was this little. Oh, this is the wrong channel. This is all I had. So I just went off of all this. So I didn't know anything about any off states or different. Like I don't even know what lab report means. I don't even know what any of this data means. I just implement it. I don't know what a gal is. I don't know what any of this means. So I don't know.
Yeah, when you also have to remember what's going to be on the table will be based on what the back end provides, right? So it's going to, we're doing it from the front end without really knowing what the back end is going to deliver, but the back end is only going to deliver stuff that you're authorized to see, and it'll also probably have some sort of separation of, all the sensors you own might be in one particular array, and then all the others might be in another, right? There's going to be some data structure organization of it.
Yeah, but
so I think all of this gets us really far with the front end. And when I'm done with the onboarding, I'll start trying to bring down all the sensor data to the front end, and then we'll probably have to do some more work on this just to kind of mix it all together.
Yeah. So the device.
Sorry, go on.
I was just commenting on some of the columns here. The device orchestration database will have things like location and version and connectivity and ID. It does have like the last check-in timestamps, and you can convert that to something pretty, wouldn't necessarily give them a Unix epoch number. I don't know whether or how we would store the last peak acceleration. That's not something we save. And is that something like we're not saving unique earthquakes? So in the case of like earthquakes detected, we would have to implement that somehow, like define what an earthquake is.
The thing is, go ahead.
I've got a suggestion there. I'm sure Vaclav has got more, but I would suggest that anytime a sensor is triggered with its STALTA, we can grab a peak acceleration from those 10 seconds. What's the maximum acceleration we've had in those 350 readings? And that becomes the number we put there. And, and it gets upgraded as soon as we've had another one. We might see something wild, because if someone picks up their sensor, they're going to, we're going to have something crazy there. But
yeah,
exactly.
And
I
we'll
think
need to decide so the detection algorithm in the cloud. So an earthquake happens, the sensor says, "Ooh, that was an earthquake." It sends 10 seconds to the cloud, and it starts to transmit live data. At that point, the detection side of this needs to go pick up and figure out what alerts it should throw, what other awareness, what other sensors are also seeing this accelerometer experience, and then you would have to decide what to write back to the permanent database to get those other values.
Right.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I think it should be somehow like peak earthquake acceleration, because as Sandy is saying, somebody picks up a sensor, creates like giant acceleration, and it's not going to make any sense unless it's an earthquake acceleration. So I think if we do have those algorithms that actually, define or estimate what is an earthquake, what is not, it should be probably peak acceleration should be peak earthquake acceleration. Still, it's like a value that is sort of like there's probably a debate to have, like whether it makes sense to display one value per sensor like this. But I think that's something that we can deal with later.
Yeah.
I just wanted, for Marion's benefit, given that you're new here, Marion, I just wanted to say that, having spoken with Raj and you guys, what you're seeing here, Marion, is the sort of open source dashboard that this community is creating. And the idea is that in New Zealand, we had discussed, hosting this, or an instance of everything you're seeing for you guys over there. So whilst there's going to be a global system, if say Massey and your group were interested, which I think Raj said you were, we would find a way of helping you put this on your own server so that you could also, be in charge of your sensors. Alternatively, we could find a way of integrating your data into the global system, but having you only access the sensor nodes which you've got, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks, Andy. Yeah, I'm just here listening and just trying to grasp everything. And maybe in the next meeting, Raj can join and he'll be able to give more inputs in this. Yeah.
Just that we get very technical here, so I thought it'd be good just to give you an idea of what this is.
Yeah, that's all right.
But,
I think the dashboard looks good.
Yeah, thank you. Chris and Ryan and I and everyone else involved spend a lot of time on it. I think you wanted to say something, John?
No, I was just thinking about how to show regional networks. In instead of it could say, instead of my sensors, it could actually say by regional network.
Oh. Yeah.
So yeah, that's a thing that Kristen is currently working on now, and I think the leading opinion on it is to have it work basically with a drop down up in the upper right hand corner next to the account menu, and whatever even further up, Johnny, like next to the up there, like when you change a region, similar to how IBM Cloud, when you change an account, the entire cloud account reloads with the new data. That's kind of the leading way of doing this, right? Where whatever networks you have access to, you'll be able to change them up in the upper right-hand corner, and you're really only looking at the data from one network at a time. Cool. I don't know if that works with, we have to just make sure that works our plans for with everything, but it really keeps them isolated, but they're all under the same dashboard.
But yeah,
because honestly, the infrastructure so I do like that idea, because then you could zoom the map to New Zealand or zoom the map to Nepal, because you're really dealing with those networks uniquely. Exactly. And then you would see the sensors for that network. And because remember that the dashboard might be hosted in one place, the regional networks, the infrastructure for that regional network, we want, for latency reasons, to be closer to that network. So switching over is sort of the whole point. So you want to load the regional network.
Yeah, that's an interesting infrastructure too. I mean, when you click on a different network, we have to set it up infrastructure cloud wise and backend wise to basically go to a different instance of it, right? Because you want the backend also delivering data from whatever the closest data center is to that particular instance, right?
Yeah, so it adds. I think we've got a good infrastructure design that Adrian and I have talked about now. We haven't built it yet. Still sort of drawing board type of thing where you would have different. The regional network would have the detection algorithm, the MQTT broker, and the alerting. Those are unique for the region, and then everything else is sort of common shared infrastructure. So that would have one database of devices and one dashboard and one place to store the data for analysis. But then how we do the alerts and do the ingest is going to be closer.
Yeah.
Do we have a diagram for that, John? It'd be really good to see a visual.
Yeah, I remember that was 2 weeks ago. I haven't drawn a sketch of it.
There are still
Maybe Adrian and I could get a sketch going.
Yeah.
You get to visualize this sort of separation between the central and the edge situations.
Okay.
Right.
Adrian, do you? Oh, sorry, Johnny. Go ahead, Johnny.
No, if you still have something to say, then continue.
No, I was going to ask someone else, but if you have something.
Well, I was just gonna go over some additional points on my sensors page, which would take a second. So if you'd had a final note, then I think you best do it.
No, go ahead. Although we have the dashboard meeting on Friday, so if it's something you want to discuss now,
a couple things.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just a quick flyover of the points. Currently, I'm just wondering if this in this state should already be pushed to as a sort of work in progress PR or even just as a PR, because there are still a couple bugs as I previously shown. The middle table doesn't really work the way I would like it to. Plus, a big issue is if I search for something, say CZ4, 74D, and like stuff like that. Can you spot the issue?
Well, this is 1 of 20, but
Yeah,
that's fine.
There's only one. Yeah. There's only one visible, and the paging will still behave like that.
Yeah, I think that's still fine. I would say I would err towards work in progress is fine, and then as more people can download and test this when it's running in GitHub. So I would err on the side of something like that, especially this phase should just get into.
Right, I'm pretty much happy to push it already. Currently, it's pretty random. Literally everything that you see here is random data. So
yeah, and that'll change when we do the back end for this particular page. And don't if you push something, don't be afraid to open up an issue for it. I mean, we're doing a pretty good job so far of collecting issues and keeping our project board up to date. So if you know of something, just open up an issue for it, and we'll solve it as we get to it.
Right. Sounds good. Some more engineering related things should be kept for the dashboard meeting. Then I take it.
Yeah, we need something to talk about on Friday. So I would say, yeah, if there's like technical stuff and whatnot, we can go over that on Friday.
Right, because there are indeed some things and design related things too. I also made the Zoom thing pretty smooth. So I like that.
Nice.
Yeah, that's all.
Looking good.
I think the table looks really nice, Johnny. Really nice. I think it's exactly what we want. It's really great.
Yeah, I love what Kristen designed here. I don't really know what all of it means, but so this is also why this is the only state that it allows at the moment. There's only a green knob. That's all there is at the moment. So
I suspect there will be two colors. It will be off or on.
And off will be red or.
Yeah.
Right.
We can debate. We can debate. Let Kristen go.
We can debate that because there's the concept of on but accelerometer off. There's a couple of different.
Okay, there's different states, right? That's right.
That are different.
And also, red could be earthquake. Could be just grey.
I think it's a bit strange to put the status in like a last report column. I think that's a bit unrelated.
I think that should say status, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's just a status and then like an icon, like a colored knob alongside the actual word of what it is, because blind people won't be able to see the knob. And I think it's better to just, and even like people with poor vision, they'll like, I think it's just better to have the knob or a symbol like the color next to this actual thing that it means, because you don't always mean, for example, if you pick orange for accelerator offline, who knows that means that, right? So I think
But maybe we need to have a legend inside of the map box.
Well, yeah, but I've seen what I would do, right, is I'll just inspect element it real quickly. So for example, for this it would be like oh hey, this is online, and this, for example, would be offline, and then it would be red. Oh well, that's not exactly what I wanted to do, but you get the point. No, I'm not even gonna bother. You get the point.
Yeah, I think there's some good stuff probably built into the Carbon design docs, like guidance for it and logos and whatnot. Maybe we can see if there's anything in there.
Well, I did take a look for the icons. There, like I see some stuff on the IBM docs on the IBM websites themselves. Or just like a yellow triangle and like a green circle and like a red circle. They're never mentioned anywhere on the documentation for Carbon design system, so I have no idea if that's even possible to use from the Carbon design system. So you might just have to make our own solution for that. But apart from that, that is all from me for this sensors page.
Yeah, and you have to, you know, you can always talk to Kristen about that kind of stuff. I mean, she, you know, she does this stuff for a job. So, you know, the little things where, you know, what people can sense and what people, if we need a key for something or if we need it just to change color or whatnot. I mean, you know, she definitely knows the very details of like how people pick up on certain stuff without being told it's a certain thing or not. So yeah, I mean, everything. She'll be around on the dashboard meeting on Friday, and we can go over
Do you
all this
guys
kind
have
of stuff.
any idea what is supposed to come here, or should I just ask Kristen?
Oh, that's going to be my sensors versus other network sensors.
So that's if you're in New Zealand and you want to only see your sensors versus the global network.
Well, that'll be a different drop. That'll be
I see.
if everything goes the way that
I got you.
That we think it's going to go. That'll be up in the upper right hand corner. But then that'll be the difference between your personal sensors or all the other sensors.
Right, the ones that you own. I got you.
That's right. So this scrolling is good to go then. This,
yeah.
sticky stuff.
I mean, we'll change that. The scroll. We'll style the scroll bar too, so it looks a little more.
Do I need to do that before I submit my PR, or will that?
No. I wouldn't worry about that. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
We'll do that eventually.
Okay, can we talk about infrastructure, Adrian?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Hello. Okay, so let me see how to update you. I got access. You gave me admin on the Grillo account, so I started making some clusters. Right now, there's 2 Kubernetes clusters up. They're both on the latest Gen 2 cloud, so that's a little bit new architecture for me, but it's been workable. So the one cluster is going to be dedicated to what I would say is the OpenEEW core. So that, like John explained, you know, that's the dashboard, that's the device management, and then there's a second one that's named OpenEEW Regional. And they happen to be in the same region, Washington, D.C., because that's the closest region to Puerto Rico out of the options. And as far as deployments are concerned, I've been able to deploy the dashboard to the new cluster. And, you know, Ryan mentioned earlier that we had an invalid host header issue. So the tip you gave me worked. So that problem is, I would say, solved now. So if I gave you guys a link to the dashboard, you'd be able to get to it, and that's hosted on IBM Cloud on the cluster with its own host name. The host name is.
Quick question, Adrian. You said Washington's the closest. Why not Phoenix or Virginia?
Well, I mean, I didn't see those as options. The options that I saw for the VPCs, there was like 6. It was pretty much between Dallas and Washington, D.C. And then, so as far as like distance, D.C. turns out to be closer. And I did like a quick Google search to see whether or not the latency is better from DC or Dallas, and based off one source, it said that the DC was actually closer. So it's like
Okay.
30 milliseconds to 65 milliseconds, something like that. But we can switch pretty quickly. But like I said, those the options are Dallas versus DC for now. And then, all right, so that's where those things are hosted. And like I said, the dashboard's up. There's a URL there. It's auto-generated, so we're not using the URLs that you guys mentioned in the chat yet. And I just deployed the detection algorithm and the Postgres database over onto the regional. And I also set up a load balancer for those. So that's kind of the infrastructure pieces. Then I made a bunch of changes to the detection engine repo. So we talked a bit ago about refactoring the Docker file that was in there. So it's like we had a big mono Docker file. I broke that up into two. That's been done for a while, but it hasn't actually been pushed into the main repo that got merged in this week, I believe. And then I set up some of the same continuous integration stuff for the detection repo that I set up for the dashboard repo, which means you have to open a pull request, someone has to review your stuff, and there's a lint check that happens. So that's all the stuff that's been done. And then of course there's like endless to dos. I have a whole list based off of what you guys said in the meeting and things I know how to do. But I mean, so any questions so far?
What does the by the way, I'm working through the Coursera course that you gave me to understand all this stuff better. but what currently what is the what does the detection Postgres SQL database what are we going to use it for? Is that where the earthquakes are going to come from? Because I've been thinking about the sensors so much, I sort of forgot where we were infrastructure wise with where we're going to store the earthquakes. No.
Can I answer that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because
I
I recommended the Postgres thing a while ago, and I only said that because we at Grillo, before open sourcing and in AWS, had used different databases, and Postgres was our favorite just because we were familiar with it. And also because they have a flavor of it called timescale DB, which was really attuned for time series data, which is what we deal in. There's also influx, but that wasn't the SQL language you would use was a bit odd. So we somehow stuck with Postgres and timescale. And so when we got started, just to give you some history here, but Egidio, who we haven't heard of, Egidio, am I pronouncing that right? We haven't heard of him in a while, but he was incredible in creating the original detection Docker and all the work behind that. And at that stage, we hadn't advanced as much as we have. So, I think there's a question, at least in my mind, as to whether we need to use Postgres and timescale DB, and whether we couldn't use, for example, Cloudant or whatever the open source version of that is, given that it's a JSON native database. So I think it's an open question there.
All right, that's good. I'm glad that. So this did come up a couple of weeks ago. I believe John and I briefly tapped onto this because when you go look at the detection algorithm, it doesn't seem like you're using the relational part of SQL. So what that means is you just need a data store, and it doesn't really matter where it's stored. So if you use a JSON-based data store, that should work as well. And then we would actually lose one piece of the overall architecture if we got out of Postgres and instead use Cloudant, because John's already using that to set up the device management.
Yeah, exactly. Just so you know, Adrian, the most basic high-level view of the way it works is that the database was storing, on the one hand, acceleration. So when there was an earthquake detection, we would store, 10 seconds or whatever of accelerations, and potentially we could visualize that like we just saw on the dashboard. And then on another table, we were going to store, the data related to users and their sensors and all of the information we saw on the sensor page. So that was the plan. But of course, I think we've moved on. So I think there's still a lot of questions now. And for me, the stuff that we have inside of the detection Docker that's still very relevant could be the detection Python scripts, but and the MQTT service, but the broker. But the other stuff, the database and anything relating to that part, maybe is redundant now, or we should look at it again.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. I think that was part of the reason for breaking up the Docker file to begin with, right? That piece should be replaceable. I mean, I could even argue that we should do the same even further with MQTT versus the algorithms. If we split those up, then MQTT server could be replaced as well. And you just use Postgres and MQT for local development, and then you could choose whatever you want for production level stuff. But yeah, so that's kind of where we're at. I mean, there's still a lot of work to be done around. We have to check. So I have the 2 clusters up. I just deployed everything, so I haven't really tested networking like to see whether or not these things could even talk to each other yet. I'm not sure if there's really a good way to test that. I could do some manual tests, but I know we don't have anything automated. And then I think we have to do some work around. We have a situation where when you merge into master, we're automatically deploying to Kubernetes, and that works. But I would like us to actually do some of those Kubernetes deployment tests at the pull request level. And the reason for that is because when we go 1.0, and then eventually there's going to be more people who want to contribute, we won't really know whether or not people are contributing breaking code until it's too late. So we got to kind of shift left a little bit. So that means that as a group, we probably need to start thinking about how can we do some smoke tests on all the components, and then have them be executed at a pull request, so that we at least know that there's some level of stability in the code changes that are coming in.
So I'm not sure if this is what you mean by testing as well, but one thing that we have inside of the Docker at the moment was a script that simulates a sensor. So it sort of grabs JSONs that we have actually generated from real sensors in Mexico, and it sort of plays them back at the right speed into the MQTT service. So that would be a nice
the
way.
dissection seems to be the only place that has a little bit of testing. So I've been using those to kind of validate connections between the pieces of the detection engine. But what I'm talking about is like the overall infrastructure, right? So you can make sure that the detection engine works because there's unit testing. That guy from Italy wrote some unit tests, and you have the little test script you just mentioned. But how do we know that the detection engine works with dashboard, works with device management, that kind of stuff? Like across the board, we don't have that level of testing, and that's going to become more important in the future when we deploy this, right? We can't go to Puerto Rico, give them hardware, deploy this on Kubernetes, and then the first day anyone uses it, it all falls apart because we don't even know if the things test together. I mean, work together yet.
Yeah, I'm going through now to make sure we have an issue open for that, because that is important. I mean, we need a whole, like, I say this a lot too, but we need a whole, like, I mean, in addition to those quick tests that we can just fire off to make sure that we can hit the API and all that before we merge, we also just need a whole testing suite, right? At least the integration test, the API routes. Front end should at least be testing if we're delivering a front end, based on certain API responses or HTTP responses and whatnot.
Someone working on that?
What's that?
Wasn't someone working on that?
There was someone working on that, but I don't think we've heard from him for about 2.5 months. I think that was in December. So it might be, and that was only for unit testing on React, if I remember correctly. I don't think it was anything with the back end or any of the just quick the smoke test stuff that Adrian and I were talking about before with just sending, making sure we at least get responses from everything deployed. So yeah, let's definitely make sure we have a issue for that open and work on that fairly quickly.
Yep. Oh, so beyond that, I still have to also, for my to-dos, I should walk you guys through the Kubernetes deployment so you can play with it yourselves. Because I believe you can get access to the cluster on Grillo's account, and then that'll allow you, Ryan, and Johnny to play with whatever you want to do on there. Because the other beforehand was on Kofa Code account, so you guys wouldn't have had access to that, but you should be able to get access to Grillo's. And so that's
most of the people here have access. I'm not sure, Johnny. I can give Johnny access. I'm not sure he has access, but most people here have. I'll give it to you, and we can do that in a chat. One thought, Adrian, is that the README is probably really out of date, right? On that repo.
Which repo? The detection or
the detection repo?
I updated it with the Docker file changes for sure.
Oh, great.
So it's updated in that sense. I mean,
I haven't looked in a long time. I'm sorry.
Yep. I think the dashboard just got updated too, based off of Ryan's pull request. I haven't read it yet, but it's I know he merged something.
Yeah, the README's getting a little lengthy. We have another issue open where I'd like to reduce the amount of secrets that are involved in setting everything up and make that a little more streamlined. But we can do that eventually. Yeah, so Adrian, you opened a issue, add workflows for validating Docker can build the image and be deployed on pull requests. So that's, I'm going to move that up so we don't forget about it to the top of the to-dos and get that going fairly soon.
All right. I mean, yeah, I can do that. That's kind of a carbon copy of the other deployment action that's existing. But we still need to add some testing to that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll create a new one for basically like other testing.
Right. Anything else, guys? We've hit 3 o'clock my time anyway.
Yeah.
Top of the
I
hour.
don't have anything.
Excellent. Good call. Lots
Yeah,
going
great.
on.
This
Lots
is
going
actually
on.
one of
Thanks,
the. I
everyone.
think this is the first time you actually got everything talked about on time. Congratulations.
Awesome.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree.
Great.
Excellent.
Well, thanks for recording too, Johnny. Appreciate it. Thanks,
No
everybody.
problem.
Yeah, thanks very much. Cheers,
Yep.
guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Have a good day.
everyone.
Thank
Take care.
you. Bye.